heads up, this video was originally filmed in June 2023 prior to Apple discontinuing the 9th generation iPad. In 2022, Apple released probably the most drastic change to the baseline iPad ever. And it actually seemed quite fitting that after 10 whole generations, the baseline iPad was finally decked out with a bunch of modern features. And as a very casual user of the baseline iPad, I figured, what the hell, I'll upgrade to this new iPad with all of the new bells and whistles. So now, after 2 whole years, here's what I think of one of the most drastic updates to the iPad in 2024. My first pro with the 10th generation iPad is the all-new design. It's very exciting that Apple has finally refreshed the design of the baseline iPad. For the longest time, the baseline iPad was the cheap iPad that you would get, and it still had the old classic iPad design, so it felt like it was still living in the past. This new 10th generation iPad finally feels modern and premium. It has the flat edge design that we've come to know and love not only on the iPads, but also on the iPhones. And I think now the baseline iPad finally fits in with Apple's new products. Also, something really fun about the 10th generation iPad is that we finally get colors. The 10th generation iPad comes in blue, pink, yellow, or silver. It's kind of unfortunate because now we do not have a black iPad, but hey, at least now you can have all these like fun colors. The 10th generation iPad is also finally sporting a USB-C port. With every other iPad model having a USB-C port, it always felt weird that the baseline iPad still had a Lightning port. So now that we finally have a USB-C port, we can use the same cables that you use your hard drives with, or the same cable that you use to charge your MacBooks or anything like that. Now all of your USB-C cables work with this iPad 10th generation. With that being said, the 10th generation iPad does have a much slower USB-C port than the other iPad models. While every other iPad features a USB-C port that supports up to 5 gigabit per second transfer speeds, the 10th generation iPad's USB-C port only supports USB 2 speeds at 480 megabits per second. This means that some USB-C accessories that require fast speeds won't be compatible with the 10th generation iPad, such as the Elgato game capture products, which I ended up having to learn the hard way. And the 10th generation iPad still has some security with the Touch ID fingerprint scanner. The top button on the iPad can actually read your fingerprint, which was first brought over to the iPad Air, so it's nice now that we also have it on the 10th generation baseline iPad. My second pro with the 10th generation iPad is the screen. The iPad finally has a full screen Liquid Retina display, which means that you get this giant screen on the front of the device, and there are no physical buttons on the front that take up any space. It's the same sort of display that you see on all of the other iPad models and on the iPhone. And hey, we don't even have a notch on here, which is kind of nice. I've noticed that having this big screen really makes a difference in how I use my iPad daily. It feels like a much quicker and fluent experience just having this giant screen here, and it really allows like content that you play on the iPad to really shine. So overall, it's really great to finally have a baseline iPad that has this full screen Liquid Retina display. And my third pro with the 10th generation iPad is the rear camera. This 10th generation iPad actually supports up to 4K 60 frames per second video recording, which I don't know about you guys, but I think is a huge deal. I think it's really great that, you know, after the years of people making fun of iPad users using their iPad to take pictures and whatnot, we finally have a camera on here that is honestly like pretty exceptional. So it's kind of a small feature, but I think it'll be really great for people who want to create content. Combine this new camera that supports 4K 60 frames per second and the new Liquid Retina display, I think you can create some pretty awesome content with just this iPad. But that wraps up the pros I have with the 10th generation iPad. Let's move on to some of my cons. My first con with the 10th generation iPad is the Apple Pencil support. And this is one of the biggest downfalls with this iPad in my opinion. The 10th generation iPad is only compatible with the first generation Apple Pencil, and that would be fine by itself. However, the first generation Apple Pencil has a Lightning connector at the top, which you plug into your iPad in order to sync them together. However, as we've talked about, this iPad has a USB-C port, not a Lightning port. That means you'll have to pick up Apple's USB-C to Apple Pencil dongle. Plus, every time you want to pair your Apple Pencil to the iPad, you have to get out this dongle and plug your Apple Pencil into it and then plug it into the iPad. It's not very convenient, and it's just kind of like weird to me that this was their solution for Apple Pencil support, so that's a pretty big bummer when it comes to using an Apple Pencil with your iPad. My second con with the 10th generation iPad is the front-facing camera. Because we've already talked about the back-facing camera, I have to say it's a real bummer that the front-facing camera doesn't support 4K 60 frames per second. And hey, maybe that is asking for too much. It just would have been nice if the two cameras offered the same quality. Also, for whatever reason, Apple decided to make the camera on this 10th generation iPad in a horizontal position. In other words, the camera is on the long side of the iPad, which can feel really weird when you're holding the iPad in a portrait orientation. My best guess is that they were expecting people to use this iPad with like Zoom calls and whatnot, so it would make sense that you would be holding your iPad horizontally. I just think it's a weird place to put the camera. So overall, the iPad 10th generation just kind of feels like this weird in-between. It's technically better than the 9th generation iPad, however, it's quite far from being as good as the iPad Air. With all of that being said though, I will say that I've been enjoying this iPad quite a bit. Just for some background, I've been using an iPad 7th generation for the past 3 years, so getting this big of an upgrade was really welcome to me, and for me personally, I'm willing to accept this 10th generation iPad even with all of its flaws. But let me know in the comments, what do you guys think about the 10th generation iPad? If you want to see what is in my 10th generation iPad everyday carry, check out the video below. For now, thank you so much for watching. My name is Chase and I will see you guys again soon. Bye.